You may have remembered from our survey with Jonathan Sands that he was not able to get the Watermaker running. Well, Franny and he had spent some time with it, and Franny ended up spending some time with it herself, and she was able to get it to run, but we're going to pick up from there and talk to you about our Watermaker and why it's not currently working.
Today's task is getting into this Cruise RO Watermaker. We've got some issues with it. One, it's plumbed incorrectly, so that's a big deal. But more importantly, the pre-pump, which is down here, this guy down here, this is our low pressure pump right here. This guy is leaking. There's a little hole in the back of this, and there's a little stream of water that's squirting out the back. So I'm going to pull this pump out, take it apart, and figure out why that stream of water is happening. Now, I have rebuilt this thing already. So I got in touch with Cruise RO. This is a diaphragm pump in here, and the main diaphragm and the little bitty one-way valves in it were not happy. They're all ruffled around the edges, and that was bad. So at any rate, I replaced those guys and rebuilt this, and it was fine. And then last week, right at the end of when we were doing stuff on Sunday evening, I went to do a freshwater flush, which you should do like at least probably more than once a week, but I was trying to do it at least every time we come to the boat, and it was just squirting water everywhere, so that's no good. Well, let me show you a couple other things I really don't like. Take a look at this mounting bracket that they have back there. It's all rusted, looks terrible, and I'm like, well, why didn't they just mount that gray, I think it's actually plastic, mount right to the wall? That doesn't make any sense. And then it's the same story over here. And I'm like, well, why? It'll fit in there. And then I thought, oh yeah, no, it won't, because these high pressure lines, these two blue lines, even if I was able to move this set of membranes all the way back up against the wall over there, I've got, I don't know, maybe what is that, 6 inches or something, I could slide it. If I could get it underneath, those are fuel lines that are coming through there. You know, I could probably slide it underneath there, but the problem is that these lines are coming out straight and they're going to hit this wall. So, I don't know. Here's the deal. I'd have to put in 90-degree adapters for those things, just connectors, and then I could get the hoses to come out 90 degrees, or straight down would work. That'd be fine too. And I'm sure I could get this thing tucked up in there where it should be. That would make it a lot better. And see, they've got a no step on there. That's because, you know, it's super easy to step down on this thing as you come into the engine bay. So it really needs to be out of the way. The rest of this system is this mess, and it is a complete rat's nest over here. This is the freshwater flush over here as well. That's what that single filter is for. That's a carbon filter. This also has, that bit right there is an auto flush system that's tied to this panel here, but it's completely plumbed in incorrectly. It's not right at all. It's just not right. See both of those tubes, the two white tubes? When we go back over here, these are the two white tubes. One going to the filter and the other one coming out of the pre-pump here. Well, that's not right. This line needs to go across here, except broken to put in that fresh water after the filter. But that's not right. That's completely wrong. This whole thing is just wrong, and it won't run properly. You see the air here in this filter? I can't get the air out. And then when you run this thing, when you're actually making water, the pre-pump can't build pressure, so the boost pump is always down to 0 PSI there, and this water level will just keep dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. So I'm not entirely certain what we're going to do with this system. It's kind of old, and I think it's been with the boat since it was commissioned, so it's 4 years old at this point. It does technically work, and it does produce 40 gallons an hour of water. It's just a little bit hokey, and I'm thinking I might swap it out with a newer system just because I don't want to hassle with this thing anymore. I don't know, we'll have to see. But let me see if I can get this pre-pump to work, and if that works, then I can buy myself a little more time. The one saving grace with these Cruise RO systems and any of these systems that are very basic like this is that you can get parts kind of anywhere. At least that's a claim to fame. You can get the connectors, the hoses, everything kind of anywhere. And that makes it super convenient if you're somewhere around the world where you can't get specific like Spectra parts or any other high-end name. So if you can't get those exact parts, well then maybe you can't make water, and that would be a real problem. Whereas this one, it uses a pretty standard high pressure pump, a pretty standard pre-pump on it. The filter membranes are all very standard, the connections are all very standard, and you get them kind of pretty much anywhere. So that's its claim to fame, but we have to get it working and have to get it working properly. Let me go ahead and haul that pump out. We'll throw it up on the table there and take a look. I keep finding things on this that are a bit hokey. Take a look at this. I think that's just electrical tape, and I don't know what they were trying to accomplish. When this thing sits in here like this, our leak is, where's our leak? I think it's that little hole that's right down there, that little weep hole down there. So I'm gonna have to take this apart and see what's going on with that. All right, let me go ahead and take this whole thing apart, disassemble it, and see where we are. This guy here is what I replaced last time when I had this pump apart. So the little flapper valves here on the back, these little guys, his diaphragms, they were all messed up. So this is the brand new piece. I ordered this directly from Cruise RO. It was pretty expensive actually. It's annoying now that the pump itself is leaking through a weep hole down below. Pull this guy apart. This tape's in the way. All right, well, I found the culprit here. Hopefully I can get this on here, but just right in front of my finger there is a split in this membrane. That would be it. So the problem is that as this thing's pumping, this guy's sitting on top of it, yes, and then these pistons are going up and down, pushing water through this, and there's a series of one-way valves through that split, going down below and coming out the weep hole right here. So this is kind of done. I'd have to replace this whole thing. I've already replaced this, and it wasn't, I think it spent 50 or 60 bucks on this bit here. So there is an upgrade to this pump, and the cool thing about it is it has an integrated bypass on it. This one had some hokey thing with a valve and all that. It was all plumbed in externally, and the new pump supposedly has that built in. That's kind of cool. It's 150 bucks to swap out that pump, and I don't know. So we've still got some other weirdness in there. The high pressure pump, there's like a high pressure bypass on it if it gets too much pressure. That thing is leaking. So it leaks quite a bit actually. I put a big bowl in there and ran the thing for, I don't know, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, and it filled up the whole bowl. So it's dripping pretty good. So maybe I could take that apart, maybe I could fix that. I don't know, I'm trying to think. You know, the RO membranes are 4 years old at this point. What's going to be down the road with this? What's going to break? What's going to be fussy? You know, it has this hokey fan and it's all rusty, and just everything on it is pretty used up. You know, this boat's new to us, and so do I really want to drag along this old antiquated kind of crapped out bits here, you know? Or do I want to get a new system? And maybe Seawater Pro has a pretty sweet system. It's similar to this in that you can kind of work on it and got fairly over-the-counter kind of parts and things in it, but it's just a better implementation than this. I think maybe what I'm going to do is talk to them a little bit and see what a new system would run. I don't know. I gotta make a decision on that. I'll come back to you and let you know what I decide.
Hi there. I am at the storefront of Seawater Pro. I'm actually not outside the store. I'm inside because it is really raining today. But I'm going to give you a quick tour. You're going to meet Mike, the owner of the store, and we're going to go through and look at his Watermaker. It's really great.
My name is Mike Spanos. I'm the owner and founder of Seawater Pro. I started this company 5 years ago. It started as a hobby and it turned into probably one of the most popular Watermaker manufacturers in the US today. So it's been a great business. It's been a lot of fun working with my crew, and it's coming to work every day is like going to Disneyland. This is the latest product we're working on. This runs off of a 12-volt battery. It weighs 22 pounds, makes about 5 gallons per hour. You can easily lift it with one hand.
Nice.
And this is what goes again overboard, and this is what feeds the system with raw water. The pre-filtration also happens here, and the freshwater output comes out of here. Total draw will be approximately 160 to 180 watts at 5 gallons per hour. We're designing a very compact system. This is going to be a total of 21 inches wide, and it will make close to 40 gallons an hour.
Oh,
but it's about 20 by 22 inches. Instead of 2 big membranes, we now arrange 4 membranes.
yeah.
So we can get almost the same output as a double 40 from a quad 14. People run into space issues with those 40s.
I can understand that. I mean, just by the length of them. Yep.
Almost the same.
It's really going to open a new market for you. That's great.
Yes.
And the panel can be mounted on it.
The panel is going to be one piece with this.
Oh, nice.
The control panel with the switches. All these switches and gauges will be now mounted on the side of this. So this will be one compact unit. Just bolt onto your boat, almost plug and play.
So all you'll have is the membranes and the motor, and that's it.
This is our new mini portable.
Sent that over to them. That's awesome.
This was designed from the ground up to fit in an overhead bin of an aircraft. So you can take that with you if you're going, let's say, to the Greek islands and you need a Watermaker.
Wow.
You can just bring your own in the airplane.
That's great.
How many gallons per hour?
This is 12 gallons per hour at 600 watts. This is our assembly. This is where we assemble the control panels. This section here, we're gearing up. This is dedicated for our new mini and the micro, which is in the works. So that we're in the process of rearranging everything. This is our new 5-axis mill made in USA by Haas. They make it in Oxnard, California. They make some of the best machinery. This is a robotic arm that will automatically load parts.
Cool.
So we can run it with lights out.
Just a quick update. Still tearing stuff out here, but I do have the RO membranes out. Yay! So that's good. They're out. My next task is to get this guy out. This thing is a beast. It really is as heavy as it looks. I'll bet you that thing weighs 50 or 60 pounds. I mean, it's going to be really a bear getting that thing out. The RO membranes are over there. Got them laying down, so just kind of pulling stuff out. We've got a lot more to go though, right? So we've got these filters, the panel, and all this crazy that's over here. All of whatever that is. So all that's got, it's just nutty, right? So that's all gonna come out too. Holy cow. All right, well, I'm gonna get back to it. I don't want to bore you with all the pulling this stuff out. We'll get back to it when we're actually got an open space here and we can clean it all up and start figuring out how and where we're gonna put all the bits of the new RO. So, all right, well, stay tuned. We decided on the dual membrane 40 gallon per hour unit. I want to show you a couple of quick things about the wiring for the high pressure pump. This particular one is 110 volts because we have the 40 gallon per hour unit. If you only have a single membrane, you can actually get away with a 12 volt pump. But for both membranes, kind of need a bigger pump. All right, great. So how do you wire these things? Kind of crazy. When you take the motor apart, there's a ton of wires. So let me show you what we're looking at. All right, here's the instructions here from the Seawater Pro manual. And they say tie for 100, so this is for 60 hertz, 120 volts. Tie T1, 3, and 8 together, and then 2, 4, and 5 together. So they're actually labeled inside here, just like they showed, and 2, 4, and all the way on the back, 5. So 2, 4, and 5 here, and then on this side we have 8, and 3, and T1. So there we go. We've got 3, 1, and 8 on this side. And I'm using these yellow, these are heat shrink connectors as well. So when I get done with that, I can heat shrink them and they'll shrink right down. Another important thing is this gland. So they provide this gland, but it's not with the motor, which was kind of weird. But anyway, Seawater Pro provides it, and there's just a rubber membrane there. And just put a small slit in the back of it when you put this all together, and when you clamp this thing down, it'll be watertight. There's a nice rubber seal all the way around the cover here, so that's great. And our ground, I have a little connector for the ground, that's going to go right there. So I'm going to screw that guy onto that, crimp these guys on. Now it doesn't matter which set of these you hook to the white or the black. I think the motor will actually spin in an opposite direction, but it doesn't matter because the pump will work no matter which direction the motor actually is spinning. So another thing about this is I have very little room off to the left-hand side. Very difficult to get to this cover when the motor is mounted. So I wanted to make sure I did my electrical connections before I installed the motor. So I've got the motor, you can see there's the plate here. And once you rotate it, this guy is like right up against this bit here. And you really can't, there's no room to get to these bottom screws. So I wanted to make sure I got this all wired up beforehand. Then we'll go ahead and mount the pump, and the pump will be in and ready to go. All right, I'll let you know how it turns out. Let me go ahead and get all this done, and we'll see. I think it's gonna turn out okay. Well, it's the next day. I'm still working on the install of the actual bits, but I think we've got all the major components in place. So let me show you what we got. There's the RO membranes installed. They just go up against this wall. We've got our high pressure pump and motor all installed and sitting on rubber bumpers, which is nice. They've got a little bit of flex, which is great. I'm going to put no step on this because we don't want anyone stepping on that, getting into the engine bay. I haven't tied down the cord yet. I will do that. I just want to make sure everything's cool before I go zip tying everything together. Over on the right side here, we've got our freshwater flush system here on the end. And I've got a connector over there I need to connect to. The blue line down there that you see next to the red line is actually the freshwater house water. So we're going to be teeing into that. And I do have an adapter. So the problem is that those blue lines are metric. They're 15 millimeter lines. And if you try to push a 15 millimeter into a 1/2 inch connector, it will guaranteed will leak. So you have to get a very special 15 to 1/2 inch adapter. So I'm all set there. I've got everything I need for that. That white line is our freshwater out of the RO. That'll be going to the panel. And there it is all coiled up. I don't know how much I'll need. All right, well, I'm going to continue on with what I'm doing. I think we're making some pretty good progress here. Supposed to get some pretty heavy rain this afternoon, so I'm trying to get everything done before it rains. Well, let me get to it. I'll pick this back up when I have something more to show you. All right, so this is the original through hole down there. That's it, the white guy sticking out. So that's where I have to drill. It's really, really close to the lip here, but I think I can get into there with a drill and get that bored out a little bit. I did get a hole saw, but since the hole's already been drilled in the center, it's gonna be a little hard indexing this thing. I have to be very careful. I have to drill it from the outside. If I screw this up, we can't move the boat. So that's why it's kind of a big deal. I'd have to epoxy over the hole and all that sort of stuff if I mess this up. So, all right, well, this is the stuff that anxiety dreams are made of. It's always a good time. Okay, well, I bit the bullet and I did drill out the hole. I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so there's our hole. And I've cleaned a little bit of the bootstrap tape away from it so I can get a good seal. And I'm gonna clean it, and I'm gonna use some sealant on it as well. It has a big rubber gasket. I think everything's gonna be okay. Cool thing is that even if that thing cracked or broke or something weird happened, I could always put the other one back in because its flange is huge actually and will cover this hole. So, all right, let me get it back in. It's almost thinking about starting to rain, so let me get this done and I'll get back to you in a sec. It's quite a bit in the future. I want to show you our full install and give you a little bit of feedback now that we've actually used the unit. So here, take a look at the full install. It's pretty awesome. I'm going to start at the through hole and move my way through the whole system. This is our through hole and strainer here, and as per the instructions from Seawater Pro, we have our pre-pump directly mounted to the actual strainer here. And I've got some mounts in the back there attaching it so it's good and solid. The hose comes out of the pre-filter there, ends up going back behind this chamber here, and pops out right here. And you'll see it goes into a one-way valve. These two one-way valves are important for the automatic flush that we have on the system. We'll get to that in a second. But then it flows through our two filter chambers here. The first one is the 20 micron, and the second one is the 5 micron. Now you're like, wow, those filters look like they're absolutely transparent. Okay, there's a reason why I don't actually have the filter elements in here. We are at dock right now, and it's always a great idea to pull the filter cartridges out of the filter units while you're at dock. That way they just can't go sour, can't be weird, and it makes it a lot easier for the flush to work as well. So this was a suggestion by our good friend Paul, and it's an excellent one. So every time I come to dock and I know that we're going to be here for a little bit, we're getting some other work done on the boat, and I know we're going to be here for a little while, not going to be using the RO, I don't want to pickle it but I don't want it to go sour either. So I pull those filters out so that the weekly freshwater flush can actually do its job much easier. Out of the filter housings, it runs down to the high pressure pump. Now look at that, isn't that much nicer than the old one? Look at that. It's similar in design, but it doesn't have that overflow and doesn't have any issues. It actually is a little more efficient and just works better. Out of the high pressure pump, the hose snakes around there and goes into the inlet on the RO membranes. Now notice those 90-degree connectors. Those are so important because that allowed us to mount those RO membranes inside this cavity, which was actually designed specifically for an RO. It works great. Look at that, flush up against the wall, beautiful install. The way they install is they've got this rod here and you use these clamps up at the top. Super clean, super nice. They don't rattle. They're covered in rubber like that. Perfect. At the other end of the RO membranes, we just have a hose that connects the two membranes together. You can see that there, just sort of in series, and it comes back around. The output hose then travels down into that little hole down there, ends up here behind our panel. This is our Seawater Pro panel. It's got everything you need. It's got your TDS monitor here, it's got your flow meter, your low pressure pump here, and the high pressure pump gauge is here. But this is the real star of the show here. This valve is a specific valve. It's proprietary to Seawater Pro. It's one of the things that allows this system to be so easy to use. The problem with these systems is when they turn on and when that high pressure pump goes, it can send a shock, a really strong hammer shock into the membranes and rip the membranes. So you really need something in your system to take up that shock load, and that's exactly what this valve does. Integral into this valve is that shock protection. So the only time you would adjust this valve is the very first time you use it, or if you move from like saltwater to freshwater. You're just going to be adjusting here. You're going to adjust this needle to come up here and to line up somewhere inside the screen. But then when you go to turn it on the next time, you don't have to adjust this. You don't have to worry about anything. You can just turn your boost pump on, wait for the pressure to come up on your boost here, and then hit your main pump, watch it come up, and then you'll watch your gallons per hour come up, and you are set to go. It works beautifully. One other great feature of this is it has a built-in flush system. Here, let me show you that. Remember, our water in for the pre-pump is here, but over here is a one-way valve. And what's that for? Well, this additional filter over here is a carbon filter, and this water line that's back here, this blue water line with the valve on it, is from our ship's water system. So that comes up there, comes in through this hose here, and goes into this, which is a timer that they've put together. It works beautifully, and it's battery powered, but the battery lasts forever. So I don't think you have to swap out the battery, but maybe once a year, and that's great. It's another thing I don't have to wire. And that comes in through this valve. When it turns on, it's set to a weekly schedule, or you can run it manually. And the water from the house water will come through here, go through this carbon filter. And the reason for that is many people put a tad of chlorine in their house tanks just to keep them clean, but the chlorine will destroy your RO membranes. So you have to be very careful about any type of contaminants like that getting into those RO membranes. They'll just destroy them. So that's what this is for. This is a carbon filter, and then it will automatically flow through here. This one-way valve keeps the water from going down there if there was any reason for it to, and when this thing is running, you can't get any water backwards into this system as well. So that's what these two one-way valves are for. And then the freshwater flush just flows straight through, down, through the pump, and then through the RO membranes, and then back out to back here, underneath here. This guy here is the through hole for the system. So this is the outside, this is an outside wall actually on the hull, and the water goes out through there. So when you do a freshwater flush, it just flushes the water straight through the system and then back out to your through hole. And that keeps your RO membranes nice and clean, keeps them from going sour, and protects them. If you're going to put the boat on the hard where you don't have water or you can't use your freshwater flush, then it's probably a good idea to pickle the system. That's a completely different process. And go to Seawater Pro's Pro's website. They've got a full set of instructions on how to do that. It's not hard at all, and it will protect your membranes even if they're not getting flushed. Our experience with Seawater Pro is that it's an excellent unit. It's very well engineered and very well manufactured. It also has that added benefit of being able to swap out parts pretty much anywhere in the world. That's a really big plus. And their customer service is amazing. So we called down there because we needed some filters, and they turned around and got them to us like instantly. It was really great. We're really happy with the unit. It works well. It's easy to use. It's just been great. We do have an affiliate link down below if you'd like to help out the channel and check out Seawater Pro yourself.
You won't want to miss our next episode when Franny shows you some really cool car tools that you can use on your hatches when they're leaking. Thanks for watching.